Well, hello, everybody. It is Auticus, and it's been quite a little while since I have talked to you last. I kind of gave an update a few months ago on why that was. My life took a significant turn, and I had to handle a lot of personal issues last year. So I haven't done any gaming. I've done very little gaming. I've done zero wargaming. So based off that, I haven't really had any content to put out. My life was basically on hold, on pause for a while. But I'm back, and I'm back because tomorrow, as of the recording of this video, tomorrow we see the return of the Old World, or at least we get a pre-order for the Old World. And the Old World, I have mixed feelings on the Old World. And that's what this video is. This video is the 9 things that I want or need for that up there to excite me enough to contribute to Games Workshop. Now tomorrow I plan on pre-ordering the rule books. I am a sucker for the Warhammer world. I have spent over 25 years of my life in the Warhammer world. That's about half my life, a little over half my life. I started in the mid-1990s in the Old World. I fell in love with the Old World, probably like many of you watching. Some of you may have been brought into the Old World because you got into Total Warhammer and you discovered what this was. Others of you may have missed Warhammer when it was out, when it ended in 2015 and was replaced in the dead of night by a game called Age of Sigmar, which caused a lot of grief. The Old World community, for the most part, either adapted to AOS, several of them did, I myself did that for a number of years, or migrated to another game system that was close to what Warhammer had to offer. We are now going to see, now, I'm not anti-Age of Sigmar. I am not here to try to stir up the pot. I don't like the game, but that doesn't mean that I don't like the people who play the game. I tried it for 4 years. I had to get out because it didn't offer to me what I wanted out of a war game, all right, basically. And games are supposed to be something we do to enjoy, and I just wasn't enjoying running campaigns any longer, dealing with the brokenness and whatnot that could occur if you had the wrong type of people trying to play for fun campaigns. Let's just say Games Workshop got really poor in their game design, intentionally so, because it generates revenue. But we're going to see now with this just how popular the Old World really was, because this debate has been raging for what? About 8.5 years. It's been 8.5 years since Warhammer was removed. Almost a decade. And in that 8.5 years, you can find a plethora of different topics on various forums, social media, or otherwise, debating which one is more popular or was more popular, as if, number one, that matters overall, but, you know, people like to play what's popular, what is the best, the most popular. We're going to find out. We're going to find out what kind of sales this thing can generate. And you'll know it's doing well if it continues past its initial release, despite what they're saying now. I know they're saying they're going to support this long term, but they're a company. And we all know that if you're a company, if it's not generating any sales, they're not going to put any backing behind it. So they're taking a risk here. And I'm excited to see how that pulls out. Now, as a Warhammer fan, as a person who played 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, Age of Sigmar, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition, I have a lot of emotional investment in the Old World. I've been out of the Old World, like most people, for a long time, other than through playing Total Warhammer. So while it's been a hot minute since we have walked the fields of the Border Princes, or have fought a siege at Altdorf, or fought in the underwarrens of the nefarious Skaven before the Skaven blew the world up, or blew the moon up, or whatever it was that they did in the end times. It's been a hot minute. But that emotional pull is still there. So I will put money on the books to show I'm a fan and I'm interested in this direction. For me to be excited about this, however, there's some things that have to be done. And I am pessimistic on whether or not that can happen. Now, I'm going to get into the 9 things that I want or need for this game to do. But before that, let's talk a little bit about what I'm looking for in a game. Number one, I'm not a tournament player any longer. I have not been one. My last tournament was in 2007. The Demon Book from Warhammer Fantasy 7th Edition broke my spirit. I no longer wanted to play. I gave up Warhammer for 2 or 3 years, and I focused on that time on music because I was a musician, and that was around my early 30s. And then I came back in 2010 for 8th edition because I heard that there were things that I would have liked. I am looking for a game. I'm a narrative player. I'm a campaign player, so I'm looking for campaign gamers who want to tell stories, who are able to put the leash on not destroying the game with tournament builds. If you have a good group of people, 40K and Warhammer and Age of Sigmar were great. They're great social experiences. And that's why a lot of people play, that social experience. The problem is I require the game system to handle a lot of that balance without me having to house rule, especially now. I moved a couple years ago to a whole different area of the country. You know, where I was before, I had run events for over 20 years, so I could throw together a campaign and people would play in it because I had a reputation. Mostly good. There were people who didn't like me very much because they hated house ruling and they hated the concept of deviating from that standard, that official standard. But I think overall, the campaigns I ran were received well by the majority of the community. There were just some vocal people who did not like it very much. Being here, no one knows me from Adam, so I can't go down to the store and say, "Hey, I want to run a campaign," because that's not how things work. They don't know me, and especially if no one knows me, I cannot expect house ruling to apply. So I have to rely on the rules as written to be at least good enough at a bar minimum for me to accept. Because I'm not going to be able to house rule anything or make any campaign changes. And quite honestly, I don't want to deal with the drama from that any longer anyway. That there is a lot that goes into running wargaming events, and once you deviate from the event standard that people are used to, some people get very, very angry and will challenge you to fight in the Games Workshop parking lot. Yes, that's happened to me before. And that I wasn't even using house rules. I was using Warhammer World event rules, which caused someone to want to fight me in the parking lot because they weren't tournament standard. I don't ever want that again. I'm not interested in any of that garbage. So what are the 9 things? Because I'm going to do a follow-up video to this after I've read the rules for myself. What are the 9 things that I need to be excited to actually get me to plug coins back in the Games Workshop till, to actually start wanting to paint armies again and whatnot? Fortunately for me, Tomb Kings are on the cover of the box. They are one of the 2 starter armies. And wouldn't you know it, my Tomb King army from tournament days and into 8th edition sits in a closet still, and I have everything. So I already have that army, already painted and done. So that's a +1 right there. I also have my Chaos Dwarf army still. From Forge World. So another, I heard those aren't tournament standard, and quite frankly, I don't care. I'm not planning on playing in tournaments. So planning on playing with. If I play with people who want to do like a map campaign or a campaign of some sorts, who aren't going to mind that as much, that I don't have tournament standard armies. So, but I already have 2 armies there, and plus I want to put my Chaos army back together. So I will buy Chaos stuff. I will buy Chaos models for a Chaos army because that is where my love and my heart lie primarily. But it's going to depend on these 9 things I want or need. So I'm going to go over the wants first. And wanting means these are small. It means if they don't really accomplish these things, that's not necessarily going to make me stop. But a lot of these are going to turn me off. And the needs, well, the needs are, I'm going to have very low tolerance depending on how bad the needs are not met for me to continue. And I recognize in my prediction going in is I'm pessimistic. I don't think that they're going to be able to make me happy. I am not the target audience of today's Games Workshop fan. I'm not that target, and I know that. So we'll see what happens, right? So my top 3 games, what we're comparing against. Where's my bar set? Number 1, War Master will always be my favorite system. That's what I'm looking for in a game system. It's not as about min-maxing individual characters. It's about being able to, it's command and control, being able to respond to failures. So there's risk in everything you do, which I need. I need risk versus reward, which we'll talk about. And it just wasn't about like the single superhero wading through the army, destroying it, or mega spells. Underneath War Master, my second favorite game was Conquest, and I did a number of battle reports on this channel. Conquest is an amazing system. I had a whole lot of fun with it, and I love like the aesthetics. Just all of that aside, the gameplay was phenomenal. The only reason I'm not playing that came out to a fallout between internal politics and just I'm not a salesperson, and it just didn't work out very well because I was in a position where I was supposed to be selling Conquest, and I would tell people who were interested in tournaments what things weren't tournament qualified, and I got slapped for that, and I didn't like that. I wish those guys luck. I'm glad to see they're still going strong. I saw the Abomination, the new 5th edition or 5th year anniversary model come up. Looked amazing. I hope to see Conquest continue. So best of luck over there. I still have all my armies and stuff here. It just didn't work out in terms of what I was looking for in terms of like community and whatnot. Last, the lowest part of the bar, Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition was my favorite version of the game. It still felt like armies. Yes, there were things that were busted. There always will be when it comes to war games, and in Games Workshop in particular, even 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition is the bottom of the bar. They have to make it feel, to me, I have to get that same sense of enjoyment out of the game that I did in 6th edition. 5th edition, 7th edition, 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy, I had to house rule a lot. I stepped out of the game from 7th edition because of the balance issues with the Demon Book. I'm not interested in supporting that type of work any longer. If you can't balance the game or other issues that we'll talk about with this list, I'm not interested. So that's my bar. Those are my top 3 favorite fantasy games in terms of wargaming. Let's look at what those are. Number one want. I am not rebasing a single model. I'm not doing it. If you think you're going to force me to do it, step in line with the people from the Age of Sigmar days who thought I was changing my squares for circles. Didn't do it. Now, I bought new armies during Age of Sigmar, and I used the models, or the base that the model came with, and I'm fine with that. I'm not rebasing at all. So that means there's got to be support for movement trays or something, which I hear there are. So that should not be a problem. My Tomb Kings and Chaos Dwarves are staying on their bases. I am not dorking around with ripping those off. Okay. Number 2. These are wants. I want to see official support for something other than tournament style playing. One thing Age of Sigmar gets right, in my mind, is they did differentiate between basically open play, campaign play, and official tournament play. You need official support for other formats simply because the community does not like to deviate from tournament standard. And if you have to house rule that, you're dead on arrival. So having that official support at least lets you say, this thing I want to do is, narrative style, which is defined in their rule book. You get some footing that way. And again, I was challenged to a fight because I was using Warhammer World rules, which were as official to me as they can be. And I've also been screamed at for using Age of Sigmar sudden death rules, also official, but was screamed at because they deviated from tournament standard. I'm not interested in any of that, but I do need some official support to help set a framework for what I'm trying to do. And it's not tournament play. Nothing wrong with tournament play. I'm just not interested in that because it affects other pointers above. Number 3, what do I want? Varied scenarios. One of the big issues I had with old Warhammer was everything was basically a battle line or a deviation of battle line. You need objectives that matter, and I know that can be difficult when writing a war game. I'm a game designer myself. I've had to do it. It's not easy, but things like holding buildings is important, not just rushing and killing each other. And you shouldn't know the scenario before you make your army list. Because if you already know what you're going into, you get to cherry pick. And I don't want cherry picking. I want there to be risks. If you get to cherry pick everything you want because you know what you're going into all the time, then there's no risk to that. And you're always going to be able to optimize. I don't like fully optimizing every game. That's not what war is about. Part of war is being able to react to things you weren't prepared for. That is just as important to being a good quote-unquote general as it is knowing how to read a spreadsheet and pick the strongest things. So I want to see varied scenarios. Next up, number 4. I want to see the game be about tactics and strategy. This is why I like War Master so much and why I liked Conquest. More so than being able to spreadsheet and win the game based off of being good at probabilities. That's how I see current modern wargaming. It's a probability game. You learn how to maximize your probabilities, and then there's dice involved, but you understand that a 4+ is 50%, so you stack against that. I want to see more things where maneuvering matters. I want to see things where positioning matters. I want to see less forgiveness in making mistakes. It doesn't mean it needs to be brutal, hardcore. You make a mistake and you're done. But geez, oh man, you've got to punish bad play. Other than you didn't bring the right army list. Yes, that's bad play too, I guess. But I want to see that enforced on the table. My last want, number 5, risk versus reward. Modern game design is heavily influenced by Magic the Gathering when it dropped in the mid-1990s. You started to see risk. So in the 80s and the early 90s, there was a lot of risk and a lot of reward. And you started to see that slowly be eroded over time. No risk, all reward is a conscious game design choice because it provides a constant dopamine hit to the player. It makes them more engaged and makes them want to keep throwing money at you. I understand from a business perspective. I have had to change rules in games that I've written, both table and video games, because it was a little too difficult. That being said, there can be a balance struck because no risk, all reward is not something that I will accept. So some examples of that, 8th edition's Magic system. That was the strategy I saw everyone around me use was they would pick the nuke spell. There was a spell, and it would erase half or more of the enemy army if you got it off. And if you rolled a double 6 on any of your dice, that spell went off. And yeah, you had this little miscast table, but the odds of something bad happening to you were on 2 dice rolling a 4 or less, which is a very small percentage. So the odds were overwhelmingly in your favor that it was going to be mostly all reward. So people would chuck six dice at that spell every round, 6 dice. And we called it 6 dice for the win because whoever got that off first would typically cripple the other person. So the strategy of the game was I need to get my 6 dice spell off first when you boiled it down. And guys, that might be fun for a couple times, but dude, years of that stuff wore me out. That was not fun at all. There needs to be risk to reward. You want to have uber killy spells? I'm all for it. But I want to see some risk in. Like, if I'm going to use those spells, there should be a chance I blow myself up. It shouldn't just be an auto take. And I brought in Magic the Gathering because there's a thing where there's a comment you'll hear people say, I paid points for this, and I didn't pay points for this to fumble or to blow up myself. That's stupid. It's risk versus reward. Some people don't like that. I get it. And I know I'm in the minority because I design games. I get it. But this for me is a heavy want. If I look in the book and I see nuke spells and they're very easy to get off, I'm going to lose a lot of interest. Okay, those are my 5 wants. That leaves us with 4 needs. Needs are very important to me when it comes to a game. First need. Number 1 need. I don't want to see I win buttons in any army. What is an I win button? Well, those are the things that are so busted that they're obvious. They're going to be in every army because they're so super powered. There's no downside to taking them, and you know that in a year they're going to get nerfed in the annual rebalance. Those are I wins. I don't want those. Number 2, I want to see actual armies. I need to see actual armies on the table. I don't want to see armies that are 12 models. Now, you have something like Ogre Kingdoms, which were small model count. That's cool. That one army can have that theme of small model count. I don't want every army to have this because people naturally gravitate to those because it's cheaper, not as much to paint, easier to transport. I get it. I, however, need an army game, not a company skirmish game where there's only 12, 20 models on the table. That doesn't interest me at all. I don't want to see Cav Hammer like in 7th edition. I don't want to see mega bricks like in 8th edition. I don't want to see the army be the massive brick belly slapping each other in the middle of the table because of things like steadfast. So those are things, that's a need. I need to see armies. I need to see multiple units on the table, reasonable, sane unit caps, things of that nature. Number 3, need. This one's very important. Terrain has to matter. Terrain on the table has to matter. That can impede movement. Hills should be something that you want to fight over because they give you a tactical advantage. An actual one, not like, oh, you get +1 to your combat score, but that doesn't matter much because the enemy did 30 points of damage to you or whatever. Forest should absolutely block line of sight. You should have to maneuver on the table to position yourself properly. You should not be able to castle in a corner with your little gun line and just sit there and pound on the enemy army every single game because you know terrain doesn't matter. Terrain needs to matter. War games, battle is about positioning on a battlefield. The terrain is as much of a player as the players are. The terrain should have some type of role other than keep it out of the way or it doesn't do anything but look pretty. That's a need. If I go in there and I see line of sight can't be blocked, everyone has line of sight to everything, forests don't really do anything, hills don't do anything, I'm going to lose most interest. That's a need. Bar none, that's a need. The last thing, which I won't be able to tell by the rule books. This is going to be proven over time. This is an absolute 100% hard no from me. There will be no churning of army balance so that I go out and buy an army, have fun with it for 6 to 8 months, and then it gets gimped by some stupid-ass general's compendium that comes out and makes all my crap worthless. I hate that. I hated that in Age of Sigmar. I understand rebalancing, and it's important. What they were using that for in Age of Sigmar was not for rebalancing. It was completely used as a sales tool. It's a subscription service to make the people who are competitive buy new armies over and over again, and it works really, really well. And I know that's what they're doing because I've seen the business slides that talk about it. That's what the store managers are encouraged to do for that reason. Okay, so people get up in arms and go, "No, it's about rebalancing." It's like, dude, no. I've played the games long enough. They're not that bad where they swing the pendulum so wildly from side to side. Those are intentional choices that they do to keep you buying models, to keep profitability up. I understand business completely fine. I'm not interested in participating in that business model. So if I watch, and I'm a statistics guy, I'm a probabilities guy. It's what I do. I'm in the midst of a machine learning probability master's degree, and I do game design with numbers. I know all about numbers. I've done top tier tournament places. I've done grand tournaments. I've traveled. All of the good tournament players I know have their own math systems to figure out probabilities. The game is ultimately boiled down to numbers. I can look at the values of something and see how grossly they change from side to side, and know that that's intentional there to encourage sales. And also having seen the business slide, so I know point blank from the horse's mouth, that's what it's for. There will be no churning of armies. If there is, then I don't feel safe spending money. Because if I spend money and buy an army, knowing that that army is going to be super gimped in a year, or potentially super gimped, because sometimes some armies do get lucky and get a couple years, I'm not going to put money into that. If I play the game, it will be for sure on Tabletop Simulator. So those are my needs and wants. That last one, no churn of armies, that's a hard no. The needs, it will depend on the severity of what they fail at. But that last one, if I start seeing the pendulum of like what they did with Age of Sigmar when I was active up until 2019, I'm not interested. I'll have the books. I'll get to go through them. That'll be nice, but I will not be an active participant in that. So that's what I'm after. That's what I'm looking for. Now, I am pessimistic that they're going to be able to deliver something that's going to excite me, but I'm open-minded enough to buy the books and to give it a chance. So we will see. And I look forward to doing a video following up on my thoughts of what I'm looking at in these rules. And I'd like to do a battle report, another battle report showing the old world in action. So that's what I have planned coming up. If there's anything you would like to see me go over, drop some comments. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Always interested to hear your thoughts. That's why I put this channel up in the first place. If you liked the video, give me a like. If you want to subscribe, hey, I'd like to put out more content. And if this is something that where the old world and campaigning is rekindled my passion again, you can expect to see a lot of new content coming out from me. So let me know what you think, guys. Until then, I will see you soon with my thoughts on the old world next time. See you later.